What's it like to hurt someone you care about with your own hands? She thought fate had been cruel, but it brought them back together. Seeing him again felt like a dream. I'm the owner of this bar, he introduced himself simply, a gentle yet absurd confrontation. As he approached, she instinctively backed away. Wen Yifan, you deserve everything good, he said softly, those gentle words carrying her through their youth. On another rainy night, they shared an umbrella again. Wen Yifan, don't be afraid. I'll always be by your side. I've captured your shadows with my own hands, and from now on, your world will only have light. Seeing your determined gaze is like being illuminated by the sun, she thought. Fate is always unkind. From the moment she met him, happiness had always been in the cards, and after all these years, she still only liked him. If youth was about hopeful love, then what did it mean for them? They began in the same language and ended in the same language. When she was 17, she had gathered all her courage to break up with him. Sang Yang, I don't like you always coming to find me. It's really annoying. Every time, I have to come out and meet you. I hope you won't come looking for me anymore. The rain poured down, and she couldn't tell if it was tears or rain on his face. In that moment, the pride and sincerity of youth crumbled, becoming grains of sand in the cracks of memory. 6 years later, one day, Wen Yifan was woken up by a phone call. After staying up late and not getting enough sleep, her head felt like it was being stabbed with needles. Irritated, she reluctantly picked up her phone. On the other end, her childhood friend Zhong Xiqiao's voice came through, still not up yet, Wen Yifan? Looks like our big-time journalist pulled another all-nighter. Wen Yifan had fallen asleep watching a horror movie, but her drunk neighbor knocked on the door in the middle of the night, keeping her up. Dealing with that neighbor was a real pain. She planned to move out when the lease was up. However, Zhong Xiqiao's next words left her at a loss. Tonight, sis is taking you out to have some fun with some hot, lively guys. It's way better than staying home watching horror movies. Wen Yifan put down her phone, muttering the words guys under her breath. Then she thought, if it's gonna cost money, maybe I'll pass. At least working overtime is free. But Zhong Xiqiao sneakily replied, who said anything about spending money? We can just enjoy the view for free. Wen Yifan was surprised, wait, we can do that? Just check them out with your eyes, she explained. It's a bar near your office. See you there tonight. Zhong Xiqiao quickly hung up. By then, the sun had already set, and the city lights were coming on, turning the city into a different kind of scene. The night market was getting lively as the two of them headed to the bar street, known for its somewhat shady vibe. After searching around, they finally spotted the bar tucked away in a little corner. A few people were hanging out in front, and the place had a pretty amusing name, Overtime. Is this the place you were talking about? Wen Yifan asked, noting how the sign was low-key, almost like it belonged to a small salon. But Zhong Xiqiao assured her, the important thing is the owner. He's supposedly the hottest guy on this street. They found a spot to sit and looked around, a bit disappointed since the owner wasn't around, and they didn't see anyone particularly good-looking. Wen Yifan casually remarked, maybe it's that bartender over there. Zhong Xiqiao was clearly unimpressed. No way, that can't be the guy everyone talks about. While they chatted, Zhong Xiqiao noticed something and signaled Wen Yifan to look towards the 10 o'clock direction. Just then, Wen Yifan heard someone shout Sang Yang. Suddenly, a guy appeared next to the bartender, with dark eyes and a slightly mischievous smirk. Wen Yifan instantly recognized this familiar face. The guy on the stage was actually Sang Yang, and seeing him brought back a flood of memories for Wen Yifan. Was I just a backup for you? Don't worry. I won't bother you anymore. Zhong Xiqiao gently shook Wen Yifan's arm, snapping her back to the present. Isn't he your classmate from sophomore year? Didn't he chase after you back then? Wen Yifan just stared at Sang Yang, shocked that he was the owner of this bar. Sang Yang must have felt their gaze because he turned and looked directly at them. Wen Yifan instinctively flinched and accidentally bumped into a passing waiter, spilling drinks all over herself. She gasped and stood up, startled, while the waiter apologized repeatedly. "It's okay, no worries." Not much had spilled, and she was able to clean up quickly. As she walked out, she saw someone standing in the hallway. She paused and looked over. It was Sang Yang, leaning casually against the wall with a cigarette in his mouth, his expression relaxed and indifferent, holding his jacket in one hand. What was he doing here? They hadn't seen each other in 6 years. Unsure if he recognized her, when Yifan decided to act like she didn't know him and kept walking. "He can't recognize me, right?" she thought as she got closer to him. Just then, he spoke up. "Hey." Sang Yang mumbled something, catching Wen Yifan off guard. She stopped and looked over, just in time to catch the jacket he casually tossed her way. Did he recognize me? She wondered. He put out his cigarette in the nearby trash can. It felt like forever, but it was just a few seconds. "Let's talk." His voice was smooth and elegant. "Talk? About what?" Did he recognize me, or was he showing off? Is the bar owner now? Was he introducing himself? Maybe he didn't recognize me. Trying to stay calm, though internally panicking, she said, "Is there something you need?" "Sorry about the spill earlier. It was our fault. We'll cover your bill tonight." His polite words didn't match her memories of his lazy, cold tone. "No need. It's fine." When Yifan responded, shaking her head. Seeing her response, Sang Yang seemed relieved, his expression softening. "I need to go." When Yifan looked down at the jacket in her hand, about to call out his name, but stopped herself. In her flustered state, she blurted out, "Mr. Yang." He turned, their eyes met, and the world seemed to freeze. In that tense silence, when Yifan thought she saw a slight twitch in his brow. What did I just say? Did I actually call him Sang Yang? Why would a stranger know his name? When Yifan's breath caught, struggling to maintain her composure. She didn't dare look at Sang Yang's face, just pressed her lips together. Sang Yang seemed a bit surprised, as if he had just realized something. He said casually, as expected, "Sorry, but this is a respectable bar." When Yifan felt a bit lost, not quite understanding what he meant. Sang Yang continued, making his stance clear. When Yifan awkwardly looked at him, wanting to explain, but felt there was no way to clear things up. She sighed inwardly, tired of struggling. Thinking they wouldn't see each other again, she decided to play along. "Is that so?" "What a shame," she said, pretending to be disappointed. Sang Yang's expression froze for a moment, as if at a loss for words. When Yifan didn't mind much. She tried to return his jacket, but he didn't seem to want it back. "Aren't you happy wearing my jacket?" Although Sang Yang wasn't sure why, it seemed like he was giving her an out. Maybe he thought she was here for him, like those who come to see the bar owner. Her friend Zhong Siqiu laughed, confirming, did he really say that? Might as well frame it. When Yifan explained that was the gist of it. Zhong Siqiu tried to comfort her, laughing, maybe he's used to it, thought you were here to see him. Didn't he mention something about, well, you know? She couldn't hold back her laughter. Just then, the waiter who spilled the drinks came over to apologize and offered to refund their money. The bar owner had instructed them to give Wen Yifan and her friend a free meal. That reminded Wen Yifan of Sang Yang's words, and she reflexively refused, telling the waiter to keep the money. She then handed Sang Yang's jacket to the waiter, saying it must belong to another customer. The waiter quickly apologized and left. Once the waiter was gone, Zhong Siqiu couldn't help but ask Wen Yifan, did he really not recognize you? You haven't changed that much. Wen Yifan glanced over at Sang Yang, who was chatting with other girls at the pool table. He probably didn't, she said. At that moment, Sang Yang was being invited for a drink by someone else, but he didn't seem interested. Zhong Siqiu sighed, maybe he really didn't recognize you. When Yifan took a sip of her drink, wondering if Sang Yang had truly forgotten her. After listening to a female singer's song and finishing her last drink, when Yifan got ready to leave, pulling Zhong Siqiu along. As she stood up, her bracelet slipped off her wrist and fell to the floor. Zhang Xiqiu linked arms with Wen Yifan, saying they should go clubbing next time and have a blast. As they walked past Sang Yang, a woman was asking for his WeChat, but he didn't respond. Even after Wen Yifan left, he seemed lost in thought. Snapping back to reality, Sang Yang declined the woman's request, saying he didn't have a phone, and then sat alone at the bar, looking gloomy. A waiter came up to him and mentioned that the two girls who just left had dropped a bracelet and handed over the jacket. Seeing the money on the tray, Sang Yang quickly realized who it was and scolded the waiter. Weren't they supposed to get a free meal? Why is the money still here? The waiter nervously explained, maybe it wasn't for the drinks. Realizing his words might have been misunderstood, the waiter added, it's pretty noisy here, so I might have heard wrong. But it seemed like they were here to see the boss. Then he awkwardly continued, or maybe it was a tip for me. Sang Yang looked puzzled. So, this might be your tip? Later that evening, when Yifan was busy at work when her phone buzzed with a message from Zhang Xiqiu. She had lost her bracelet and needed Wen Yifan to help find it since she was too far away from the area. After work, Wen Yifan headed back to the bustling street. The bar was dimly lit as she approached the bartender, who smiled and asked if she wanted a drink. Wen Yifan shook her head and explained she was there to look for a lost bracelet. The bartender checked a drawer but found it empty. He asked another staff member, Yuzhua, if Sang Yang might have taken it. Wen Yifan was startled to hear Sang Yang's name. The bartender, looking embarrassed, told Wen Yifan that the boss might have taken the bracelet and asked if she wanted to leave her contact information so they could return it later. He handed her a business card. Wen Yifan quickly jotted down a number on the business card and handed it back to the bartender, hoping he could help her look for the bracelet again. Suddenly, the card was snatched from behind her. Startled, she turned to see Sang Yang standing very close, casually glancing at the card. Still haven't given up, hey, he said, his familiar yet slightly mischievous eyes fixed on her. Had he recognized her? Sang Yang tossed the card onto the bar and slowly moved closer to Wen Yifan, asking if she had come just to leave her contact information. Instinctively, Wen Yifan stepped back, trying to avoid his proximity. Sang Yang pulled out a stool next to her, sat down, and silently filled 2 glasses with alcohol, offering one to her. Wen Yifan looked at the offered drink, confused. Was he trying to get her to drink? Before she could speak, Sang Yang took the lead, asking how she wanted to be entertained. The question brought back memories of the previous night. I'm sorry, this is a respectable bar. Please behave yourself, he continued. She feeling awkward, was he mocking her, thinking she was here for something else? Feeling helpless, Wen Yifan pretended not to hear him and explained, I'm here to help my friend find her bracelet. I heard the boss usually keeps lost items. Sang Yang immediately denied it, saying he didn't have time to deal with such trivial matters. When Sang Yang denied it, Wen Yifan stayed silent. This guy was still as annoying as ever. She got up to leave and told him to contact her if he found the bracelet. Sang Yang, not caring, just asked casually and kept drinking, ignoring her. As Wen Yifan turned to leave, Sang Yang suddenly called out to her, like he finally decided to acknowledge her. She turned back, surprised, thinking he might have had a change of heart. But instead, Sang Yang started scolding the bartender, telling him to hurry up and look for the important item someone lost. The bartender was stunned, and Sang Yang went back to drinking as if nothing happened, still ignoring Wen Yifan. She watched all this in silence, her thoughts drifting back to her school days. The school bell rang, and Wen Yifan hadn't found her classroom yet. She saw a student getting water and asked for directions, but he ignored her. Hesitating for a few seconds, she tried again, calling him senior. Sang Yang looked up but didn't turn around. Go straight and then right, he said with no extra words. Wen Yifan nodded, waiting for more instructions, but Sang Yang didn't say anything else. She had to ask again, and then? Sang Yang turned to her and asked if she expected him to read out every door sign. Do I have to spell it out for you, freshman, he drawled. From that moment, their paths crossed, tying their fates together. On the first day of the new school year, classes had already started when Yifan finally found class 17. She knocked on the door, breaking the silence. The homeroom teacher glanced at her, then at the attendance list, thinking it was Sang Yang. Yifan shook her head and introduced herself. The teacher checked the list again, surprised since only Lifan and Sang Yang were supposed to show up. The teacher assumed Sang Yang was a girl's name, so they hadn't realized when Yifan was expected. Just then, a boy called out from behind her, also asking to enter. She turned around instinctively. It was the upperclassman who'd given her directions earlier. Sang Yang also noticed her glance but remained indifferent, apologizing to the teacher for being late. He casually admitted he was Sang Yang. Yifan then realized how tall he was. The teacher, looking at both of them, asked if they arrived together since they were both late. Sang Yang awkwardly scratched his head and explained, "My dad didn't know I was a high schooler now and dropped me off at middle school." The whole class burst into laughter, breaking the silence. The teacher, not wanting to make a big deal of it, told them to take the empty seats at the back and introduce themselves before leaving the room to let the class self-study. Once the teacher was gone, the class returned to its lively state. A boy sitting in front of Sang Yang leaned back, resting his elbow on Sang Yang's desk. Clearly familiar with him, the boy smirked and teased, "Miss Yang, your name really does sound girly. If you were a girl, I'd definitely hit on you." Sang Yang looked him up and down, unimpressed. Sang Yang replied slowly, "Su Haoan, are you serious? Even if I were a girl, I wouldn't go for a toad like you." Then he started explaining the origin of his name while Yifan awkwardly listened in. "My dad spent 7 days and nights with a Chinese dictionary and had like 100 family meetings to pick out the manliest character he could find," Sang Yang boasted. Yifan whispered to herself, "And your name still sounds less manly than mine," then accidentally let out a giggle. The two boys turned to look at her at the same time. "Uh-oh, did they hear me?" she thought, feeling busted. Sang Yang lightly tapped the desk and asked, "By the way, what's your name?" Feeling a bit proud of her own cool name, Yifan casually introduced herself. Sang Yang just nodded, without much reaction. Meanwhile, in another scene, Yifan snapped back to reality when the bartender handed her a bracelet. She thanked him, then turned to Sang Yang, who was drinking, and said thanks again. Sang Yang didn't react, so she left. Suddenly, Sang Yang turned to watch her leave. The bartender noticed and couldn't help but comment. "What's up? Got a problem?" Sang Yang's sharp eyes stared at the bartender. The bartender, He Mingbo, instinctively stepped back. No, I don't have any problem," he stammered. Sang Yang turned back to watch Yifan's retreating figure. Once she got home, Yifan quickly tied it up and called Zhang Xiqiu to say she'd found the bracelet. To thank Yifan for finding her bracelet, Zhang Xiqiu invited Yifan to watch the New Year's Eve fireworks show. But Yifan said she couldn't make it because she had to work the live broadcast of the fireworks at the same location. She joked that they might run into each other there. Zhang Xiqiu felt a bit sorry for her friend having to work on New Year's Eve. Just after they hung up, there was a sudden, loud knock on Yifan's door. She turned quickly. "Who's there?" "It's so late." A drunk neighbor slurred, "Hey, pretty lady, can you help me out? My bathroom's broken. Can I use yours?" Yifan didn't respond, so he kept banging on the door, getting louder and more aggressive. Scared, she grabbed her phone. "Hello, 911? I'd like to report an intruder." When the police sirens arrived, the drunk guy was hauled into the police car, shouting that it was all a misunderstanding. The cops advised Yifan to move out soon. The next day at work, her colleague noticed she looked tired and asked what happened. After Yifan explained, her colleague Wang Linlin offered to share her apartment since her previous roommate had recently moved out. They decided to check out the place together in a few days. Wang Linlin started bragging about her boyfriend, saying he was taking her to a hot spring hotel for New Year's. Their colleagues joked about how it's better to be single. Everyone was used to her showing off by now. Meanwhile, Dongjio Plaza was packed with people ready to watch the fireworks show. After everything was set up, Wen Yifan asked Fu Zhuang to keep an eye on things while she went to the bathroom. The bathroom line was crazy long, and while waiting, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Zhong Xiqiu. Apparently, Sang Yang had sent her a New Year greeting. Even though it was a group message, Zhong Xiqiu was still surprised. Wen Yifan stared at the message, remembering she had Sang Yang's WeChat too, but they hadn't talked in years. She hadn't even received a group message from him. He must have deleted her. Whatever. She decided to send out some New Year greetings herself and clear out some old contacts. Just then, a familiar voice called out to her. It was Sang Yang. What was he doing here? He was supposed to be enjoying New Year's with his dad. Wen Yifan felt a mix of frustration and amusement. So you called me over just to babysit, a pretty girl teased, patting his arm. If only you had this sense earlier. Also, have a chat with your sister. She seems really stressed lately. Sang Yang absent-mindedly replied, You want me to talk to her, while his eyes were glued to the New Year's greeting text from Wen Yifan. A woman nearby noticed Sang Yang's distraction and asked, What's up? He kept fiddling with his phone and responded, It's not just an age gap thing with her, there's a gender gap too. So, I'll leave this one to you. He then focused back on his phone, sending out a message just as Wen Yifan's phone buzzed again. It was from Sang Yang, and it was just a single question mark. What did that even mean? Wen Yifan glanced at his message, wondering if she had sent something inappropriate, but no, it was just a simple greeting. His reaction seemed like he'd seen a ghost or something. She was at a loss for words, typing and deleting responses over and over, feeling uneasy. As Sang Yang got Wen Yifan's message, he received a notification too. It was ironic how close yet distant they were, familiar yet strange. Wen Yifan turned her head, curious about Sang Yang's reaction, but was interrupted by a familiar voice asking, Where are the tissues? She handed over her own pack, saying, Use mine. The girl reached for the tissues, saying thanks, but froze when she looked up. You're welcome, Wen Yifan said, heading to the bathroom. The girl was Sang Yang's sister. Brother, I think I just saw someone I know, she said, pointing towards the bathroom. Sang Yang looked but didn't recognize anyone. Just then, Fu Zhuang called out, Wen Yifan, over here. Wen Yifan hurried over, thinking something was wrong. Fu Zhuang was hugging himself, shivering like crazy. Sis, if you had come any later, you'd be looking at my frozen corpse. Wen Yifan pulled a hand warmer from her pocket and handed it to him. There's still some time before the fireworks show starts, he said. Do you think making a wish on fireworks works? Wen Yifan was busy organizing her documents and just answered briefly, No. I just want to wish for a girlfriend next year. Then it definitely won't work. They chatted idly, and Fu Zhuang hadn't expected Wen Yifan to be so blunt. Alright, then I'll wish to grow a bit taller, just as tall as that guy over there. Wen Yifan followed Fu Zhuang's gaze and saw Sang Yang standing across from them, on the phone, seemingly unaware of what was happening. Wen Yifan was surprised to see him again. How is he everywhere? Fu Zhuang kept mumbling to himself, completely oblivious to Wen Yifan's change in expression. He was imagining having Sang Yang's physique, even wishing he could swap heads with him. Wen Yifan thought Fu Zhuang probably wanted Sang Yang's face too, but maybe that was going too far. Feeling exasperated, Wen Yifan turned as Qian Weihua called them over to give some instructions. As New Year's Eve approached, the atmosphere grew more festive. The LED screen on a distant skyscraper had started the countdown, and the crowd around them began to join in, chanting the numbers. Wen Yifan was surrounded by people and couldn't move. Suddenly, someone bumped into Wen Yifan, and she stumbled, almost falling. At the last moment, a hand reached out and caught her. As she was about to fall, she ended up in that person's arms. When she looked up to thank them, she froze. It was Sang Yang who caught her. Just then, the countdown ended, and a burst of fireworks lit up the sky. Wen Yifan and Sang Yang were standing there in the middle of the fireworks, looking like a sweet couple. Wen Yifan stared at Sang Yang, then quickly pulled away, apologizing, Sang Yang just said it was no big deal, and they acted like nothing happened. Sang Yang went back to his phone call, and when Yifan, thinking he was talking to her, looked back at him, wishing him a happy new year. But the phone call continued with someone on the other end saying, "I don't really care when you come home." When Yifan wondered if Sang Yang didn't recognize her because she was wearing a mask. As Sang Yang walked away, Wen Yifan didn't know what was going on. Meanwhile, Sang Yang looked back at Wen Yifan's retreating figure, puzzled by the conversation on the phone. "Didn't you just wish me a happy new year? Don't get too worked up, I wasn't talking to you." After ending the call, Sang Yang's smile grew slightly, showing his hidden excitement. In the bustling city, Wen Yifan and Wang Linlin had planned to look at some apartments today. The place had a complete setup with a kitchen, dining room, and balcony. Wang Linlin was briefly explaining the layout of the house when Wen Yifan walked into a bedroom. The room had 2 big windows, offering good natural light and a nice environment, but the price was a bit high. Wang Linlin walked over, put a comforting hand on Wen Yifan's shoulder, and said it was okay to think it over. After all, moving wasn't a small decision. Before they knew it, it was dinner time, so Wang Linlin invited Wen Yifan to eat with her. As they walked, Wang Linlin noticed that Wen Yifan's lipstick color looked really good and wanted to ask about the shade. However, Wen Yifan wasn't wearing lipstick today and was about to tell Wang Linlin the color of her previous lipstick when Wang Linlin didn't believe her. Just then, Wang Linlin's phone rang, and she stepped aside to answer, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "Hello, darling. What's up?" It turned out that Wang Linlin's boyfriend had come to pick her up for dinner. When Wang Linlin said she had to leave, Wen Yifan felt awkward and tried to protest, but Wang Linlin quickly mentioned that her boyfriend had brought someone along too. While they were talking, a car stopped by the side of the road. Wang Linlin's boyfriend, seeing Wen Yifan next to Wang Linlin, looked surprised. "Oh, Wen Yifan?" Wen Yifan was equally surprised to see that it was Su Haoan, Wang Linlin's boyfriend. Just as Wen Yifan was about to refuse, a horn honked behind them. "Get in the car, you can't park here." Reluctantly, Wen Yifan got into the back seat. As soon as she opened the car door, she was taken aback again. Sang Yang was slumped in the seat, eyes closed, looking completely lazy and unaware of what was happening. Wen Yifan awkwardly closed the car door and turned away, choosing not to say anything more. Su Haoan glanced back through the rearview mirror, enjoying the unfolding drama. "Hey, Sang Yang, wake up! Come on, your old crush is here." The noise jolted Sang Yang awake. He quickly opened his eyes, looking at Wen Yifan with a clear and calm expression, showing no signs of just waking up. Since neither of them spoke, Wang Linlin broke the silence. "So, you guys know each other?" Su Haoan got excited and started talking about their past. Sang Yang remained silent, as if Su Haoan was talking about someone else. Curious, Wang Linlin asked, "What's this about a crush? Did your friend try to pursue Yifan but didn't succeed?" Su Haoan laughed and nodded. Yeah, that's right." When Yifan couldn't help but glance at Sang Yang, who was still silent. Not expecting him to say anything to ease the situation, she tried to stay calm and said, "Really? How come I don't know about this? Maybe you remembered wrong?" Su Haoan insisted, "How could I be wrong, right, Sang Yang?" Sang Yang stayed silent, which made Su Haoan realize something was off. He looked at the two through the mirror and asked, "Are you two still awkward with each other? It's been so many years." "I'm just talking about it for fun." When Yifan stayed quiet, feeling uncomfortable. Su Haoan then said, "Sang Yang, you're not still holding a grudge, are you?" Seeing the awkwardness between them, Su Haoan felt embarrassed too. Wang Linlin chimed in, "When Yifan, you don't have to pay attention to him. You know how he is, always making things awkward." At this point, Wang Linlin also noticed the uncomfortable atmosphere and tried to lighten the mood. "Oh, come on. Just focus on driving, okay? It's dangerous if you're distracted." They drove straight to a private dining room where everyone had already arrived, except for Su Haoan and his group. When Yifan looked around and saw that the only open seat was next to Sang Yang, so she reluctantly sat there. A guy teased, "Sang Yang, How come you're suddenly off the class chat group? Suhan, surprised by the comment, quickly defended, what are you talking about? Sang Yang, seriously? She realized the speaker was Qian Fei, a former high school classmate. Qian Fei, who knew Wen Yifan as a former classmate, started chatting across Sang Yang. The conversation shifted to various topics as they reminisced. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Wang Linlin sympathetically told Wen Yifan, your standards are too high if you rejected someone like Sang Yang. Not wanting to dwell on the past, Wen Yifan quickly interrupted Wang Linlin and excused herself, saying she had work to do. Unable to stop her, Wang Linlin wished her a safe journey home and went back to touching up her makeup. Outside the bathroom, Wen Yifan took a deep breath, relieved to leave. But as she walked out, she rang time no see. Surprisingly, Sang Yang replied with a puzzled expression, long time no see. It's only been a few days since New Year's. Have you missed me that much already? Wen Yifan thought to herself, so he recognized me on New Year's Eve, pretended not to know me, and now he's acting like it's weird I said a long time no see. Typical of him. Still as annoying as ever. If he's gonna be annoying, I'll be even more annoying. She said, wow, your eyesight is amazing, especially since I was wearing a mask and had my face completely covered. Sang Yang seemed a bit taken aback and said, is that really all it is, good eyesight? Oh, sorry, you got the wrong idea. It wasn't me who recognized you, it was my sister. She said you were staring at me the whole time. He gave her a cheeky look, clearly unchanged from before. Wen Yifan, unfazed, smiled and said, yep, that's right. Sang Yang, a bit surprised by her straightforwardness. She continued, everyone was talking about you during the gathering. They said you were quite the drama king. This remark hit Sang Yang hard, and their playful banter came to an abrupt end. After their little verbal spar, Wen Yifan smiled and said, all right, let's stop chatting. I've got some work to do, so I'm heading out. As she started to leave, Sang Yang suddenly called out to her. Wen Yifan turned around, wondering if he still wasn't done. Do you remember where Su Haoan parked his car? He asked. Wen Yifan instinctively nodded. All right, lead the way, Sang Yang said, motioning for her to go first. She thought to herself that, since she was helping him find the car, he should at least offer to give her a ride. After they found the car, Sang Yang didn't say another word, leaving Wen Yifan to find her own way home. Unfortunately, since the restaurant was on a secluded street, she couldn't hail a cab. Reluctantly, she asked Sang Yang if he could give her a lift. Where do you live? He asked coolly. City Garden. That's out of my way, he replied. Wen Yifan was taken aback by how petty he was being, so she forced a smile. I just need a ride to somewhere I can catch a cab, she explained. Sang Yang stared at her for a moment before finally saying, get in. The car ride was awkwardly silent, the bustling city outside contrasting with the quiet tension inside the vehicle. Wen Yifan glanced at Sang Yang driving, then looked down, lost in thought. Her mind drifted back to their school days. You two, Su Haoan teased, always late for class together and always at the bottom of the monthly exams. Wen Yifan's a dance major, but Sang Yang, your grades are a joke. Su Haoan, Sang Yang retorted calmly, did you miss my perfect scores in math and science? He then turned to Wen Yifan, who nervously shifted away. Looking at my test won't help you. You need to figure out your own mistakes, he added. Wen Yifan quickly organized her papers, trying to find a rebuttal. Our total scores aren't that different. How about we apply to the same college, she suggested. Sang Yang turned to her, a hint of hope in his eyes. Wen Yifan stared silently at Sang Yang, realizing he had driven past the usual stop. She asked him to let her out. Am I your chauffeur now? Sang Yang retorted sarcastically. Wen Yifan was taken aback. He didn't stop and kept driving, so she asked, where exactly are you planning to take me? Your place? His tone was mocking, like he was saying, didn't you ask me to drive you home? Before she knew it, they had arrived at City Garden. She thanked him and awkwardly suggested treating him to a meal sometime. Yeah, sure, Sang Yang replied nonchalantly. Sang Yang leaned back in his seat, his expression indifferent. Already planning our next meeting? Wen Yifan wondered how he had become such a big shot in the so-called street gang. Or maybe he misunderstood her previous words? She tried to clarify, what I said at the bar was a slip of the tongue. But Sang Yang interrupted her, which part? The regret part? Wen Yifan gave up, realizing it was impossible to communicate with him. Drive safely. Goodbye, she said and walked towards her building without looking back. Sang Yang watched her leave silently. As Wen Yifan reached the step, noticing the commotion, he looked up and met her eyes. Wen Yifan thought about asking Sang Yang for help but decided to run in the other direction. As she was about to pass by him, Sang Yang hung up the phone and waved her over. She was so panicked that she thought she imagined him calling her name. In her frantic state, she kept running, ignoring his gesture. Sang Yang quickly stepped forward and grabbed her arm. Wen Yifan looked up at him, stunned. What are you doing? Get in the car, he ordered. Breathing heavily, she got into the car as he told her. Stay inside. Don't come out. He slammed the door shut and locked it just as the three men caught up. Hey man, is that your girlfriend? She's pretty cute, one of them sneered. Sang Yang glared at them. None of your business. Annoyed by Sang Yang's attitude, the men started moving closer. So, you don't like playing nice? Fine. Have her come out and apologize, one of them demanded. Before he could finish, Sang Yang kicked him hard in the stomach, catching everyone off guard. The guy in front of her actually started fighting. Sang Yang was calm and asked, "Are you leaving or not?" The gangsters, feeling confident because they had numbers, cursed and charged at Sang Yang. There was a loud bang. Sang Yang's body hit the car. Hey! Call 911. I need to report this, Wen Yifan yelled. Soon, sirens wailed in the distance. What are you for doing? A police officer asked as they arrived. Wen Yifan quickly got out of the car and stood in front of Sang Yang to protect him. Officer, I called the police. He's my friend. Sang Yang's face was bruised, and blood stained the corner of his mouth. He looked at Wen Yifan standing protectively in front of him, but didn't say anything. Inside the neighborhood, Sang Yang sat on a bench while Wen Yifan brought some medicine she had just bought. Let's put some medicine on that. You can't go out looking like this, she said. Sang Yang roughly grabbed the medicine from her hand and started applying it in silence. Wen Yifan cautiously asked if he had any other injuries. Maybe we should go to the hospital. It won't take long, she suggested, feeling guilty and worried. Wen Yifan, couldn't you see me standing there? I called you over, and you didn't listen, Sang Yang said angrily, his tone full of sarcasm. What? I just didn't want to drag you into this, Wen Yifan replied, feeling remorseful. And there were 3 of them. I didn't think you could take them on, she added. Sang Yang was speechless, almost amused by her words. He ripped open the packaging of the medicine, and Wen Yifan, unable to watch him struggle, offered to help. Hesitating for a moment, he finally handed her the medicine. The night was quiet, with only the sounds of crickets in the background. Wen Yifan leaned in closer, but before she could get too near, Sang Yang warned her, "Don't try anything funny." She paused for a moment. "Okay, I'll be careful," she replied. She picked up a cotton swab dipped in iodine and carefully applied it to his wounds, their eyes meeting, both of them blushing slightly. Wen Yifan's heart was pounding, the air around them seemed to freeze, and the only sound was their beating hearts. As she continued to tend to his wounds, Sang Yang suddenly hissed in pain, almost like he was looking for an excuse to complain. "Can you be more gentle?" he grumbled. Wen Yifan rolled her eyes, feeling frustrated since she hadn't even touched him that hard. "Fine, I'll be gentler." They gradually got closer, their hearts beating faster and faster. When she finally finished, Wen Yifan looked up and met his gaze. For a moment, everything seemed to stop, and Sang Yang's eyes were dark, his voice a bit hoarse. Do you really need to be that close just to put on some medicine? He asked. Wen Yifan turned away to pack up her things. Sorry, the lighting here is bad. I couldn't see clearly, she explained. Sang Yang leaned back in his chair, casually asking, What's your situation? Wen Yifan, still cleaning up, explained. Sang Yang didn't look happy. Why are you still staying in this dump? Haven't you found a new place yet? He asked. She looked at him in confusion as he got up, realizing she hadn't responded. Sang Yang turned to watch her pack. Are you planning to come back? He questioned. Hearing his suggestion, Wen Yifan thanked him and stood up to follow him. After a busy session of packing, they moved her things to her new place. Thanks for all the help today, Wen Yifan said. Let me treat you to dinner sometime. Sang Yang's voice was cold and sharp. No need for dinner. Even if you were a stranger, I'd still help out. Wen Yifan stared at the bruise on his face. You always play the hero. Does anyone even see your face looking like this all year? Realizing the tension, Wen Yifan tried to lighten the mood. I mean, even if you got scarred, it wouldn't affect your good looks. Sang Yang remained expressionless. Fine. If you ever need my help, just ask. He turned to leave, waving casually to show he understood. Just then, his phone rang. It was Su Haoan asking why Sang Yang had left suddenly and taken the car. After listening, Sang Yang responded briefly, Yeah, I'm done here, and hung up, looking for his lighter. As Su Haoan kept rambling on the other end, Sang Yang found a set of keys in the passenger seat and examined them, forgetting to light his cigarette. When he looked up, Wen Yifan was already at the gate, about to go inside. It sometimes felt like he owed her. Wen Yifan's new place was in Shangju Huacheng. Morning, Wang Linlin. Hey, Xiaofan, did you get up in the middle of the night? No, why? Wang Linlin thought she was dreaming, but she heard noise in the living room around 3 a.m. when Yifan started to worry. Was her sleepwalking acting up again? When Wen Yifan didn't respond, Wang Linlin went to the bathroom, saying she had something to tell her. She was changing jobs and the current place was too far from work. Wen Yifan quickly understood. You're moving out? Wang Linlin, acting playfully, tugged on Wen Yifan's arm. Don't worry, I'll find you a reliable new roommate. It's okay, I get it, Wen Yifan replied cheerfully. Wang Linlin jumped up happily. You're such a good person, Xiaofan. Then she started badmouthing her previous roommate, acting like she was the innocent one. Wen Yifan just smiled awkwardly, wondering why she was only finding out now. After Wang Linlin left, Wen Yifan was busy making breakfast when her phone buzzed with a text message. Seeing the sender's name, she had a bad feeling. There were two messages. The first warned her not to make the same mistake twice, and the second was a picture of her keys. She wondered how they ended up with him. At home, Sang Yang also got a message and apologized. Sorry for bothering you again. When's a good time for me to come by? He leaned against the counter, sending a voice message. Wen Yifan replied by text, asking if they should meet at a bar or near his place. She didn't want to inconvenience him further. Sang Yang saw her message and chuckled at the word again. He sent a voice message back, teasingly saying, again, as if implying she had ulterior motives. The voice message ended and automatically moved to the next one. 8 o'clock. Just come to the bar entrance to get them, Sang Yang replied simply, adding a smiley face emoji before ending the conversation. He pulled out her keys and looked at them thoughtfully, a small smile forming on his lips. Right then, Wang Linlin came out and overheard Sang Yang's voice message. She curiously asked Wen Yifan, wasn't it Sang Yang who took you home last time too? Wen Yifan explained that she had asked him for a favor. Wang Linlin was surprised. He couldn't get you before, and now you're the one chasing him? Wen Yifan gave her an exasperated look. Wang Linlin kept rambling, he's probably just playing with you for a while before dumping you. These rich guys are all the same. Wen Yifan wanted to argue but decided it wasn't worth it. She was still thinking about Wang Linlin's words when she arrived at the bar. Someone called her name, snapping her out of her thoughts. What took you so long? Sang Yang had been waiting. He casually tossed the keys, which Wen Yifan caught. Thanks, sorry for bothering you again. Let me treat you to dinner sometime. How about tonight? Sang Yang replied immediately. Wen Yifan was taken aback. He tilted his head, teasing, you've mentioned this a few times now. You won't give up until I agree, huh? She felt like she was being tricked, but asked, what do you want to eat? Sang Yang looked down at her. Anything. Do you have any food restrictions? Many, she replied. Sang Yang lazily suggested, how about hot pot then, and sighed. No, not hot pot. What about barbecue? Wen Yifan suggested. Barbecue has too much smoke. How about Sichuan food? Oh, never mind, it's too spicy. What about porridge? Sang Yang continued. Wen Yifan was getting frustrated. You're impossible to please, she thought to herself, but took a deep breath and stayed calm. You choose. I'm not picky, I can eat anything. Just then, Sang Yang's phone rang. He picked it up and, since they were standing close together, Wen Yifan could hear the loud voice on the other end. Sang Yang, your place is on fire. Sang Yang frowned. What? The downstairs of your building is on fire, and it's spreading to your place. Get home now. The voice grew more agitated and even started shouting. The air around them went still. Wen Yifan looked at Sang Yang, but his expression didn't change. He simply said, oh. Can you call 119 for me, and hung up. Wen Yifan was puzzled. Is he really not worried about his place being on fire, she wondered. Let's go, Sang Yang said, but Wen Yifan was stunned. Sang Yang, shouldn't you check on your place? Sang Yang looked back at her and asked, am I a firefighter? Wen Yifan was speechless. She then asked, can I at least ask where you live? Sang Yang glanced at her, why? Wen Yifan pulled out a small notebook from her backpack. I want to go there and report on it. Sang Yang was both amused and annoyed by her dedication, but finally, he agreed. Right now, Sang Yang's apartment complex was a chaotic mess. Ambulances, fire trucks, and curious onlookers with umbrellas crowded the scene. Fu Zhong and his group had just arrived. When Fu Zhong saw Sang Yang nearby, he thought Sang Yang looked familiar. Wen Yifan explained that Sang Yang was her classmate and a victim of the fire. Fu Zhong then grabbed a microphone to interview him. How do you feel right now? Before Sang Yang could respond, there was a sudden bang, a loud explosion. Flames shot up, and both Sang Yang and Wen Yifan looked towards his apartment. Wen Yifan then turned to see Sang Yang, who was silently watching everything without any change in his expression. Hey, how do you feel right now? Fu Zhong asked again, thinking the question sounded really stupid. Sang Yang, with a hint of sarcasm, replied, I'm very happy. I hope you can be as happy as I am. The awkwardness lingered for a moment, but the interview continued. Did you lose a lot in the fire? Sang Yang, calm as ever, answered, not really. Nothing valuable, just the apartment and some furniture. Oh, and an old phone that didn't work anyway. Hearing this, Wen Yifan paused for a moment. After the interview ended, Wen Yifan watched Sang Yang and Fu Zhong walk away. Wen Yifan's friend, Chen Weihua, suggested that she comfort Sang Yang, though Wen Yifan doubted he needed it. Still, she felt a wave of sympathy for him. Ha ha, it exploded, someone laughed awkwardly. Su Haoan couldn't stop laughing on the phone. After laughing, he said, are you crazy? Do you think I'm a rental agent? Why don't you just go home? Fine, come live at my place then. He hung up. When Su Haoan realized that Sang Yang was actually coming to stay with him, he panicked. Fine, fine. You can pick a complex and I'll find you a place, okay? Do you have any in mind? Sang Yang glanced towards warm Shangju Flower City. Su Haoan, hanging up, couldn't hold it in any longer. Do I really look like a real estate agent? First, you asked me to find a roommate, and now a place to stay, he complained to Wang Linlin, who was playfully clinging to him. What is it? Can't people find their own places, she replied. One's looking for a roommate, and the other's looking for a house. Su Haoan suddenly thought of something and started laughing mischievously. One needs a roommate, and the other needs a house, ha ha. A few days later, when Yifan and her colleague, Su Tian, were discussing a recent home robbery case. The female victim had been stabbed twice by the robber. Instead of all this overtime, maybe I should just quit like Wang Linlin, Wen Yifan suggested. As the light turned green, they continued talking. Has Wang Linlin moved out yet? Yeah, she moved out that day, Wen Yifan replied, and then Su Tian gossiped. She kept showing off her rich boyfriend, but on the day she quit, another guy in a Ferrari picked her up. Maybe he was just her cousin? Who cuddles with their cousin in a car? Su Tian laughed. They chatted all the way to Shangju Flower City, said goodbye, and went home. Wen Yifan quickly closed the door behind her and hurried to turn on the lights. When the lights came on, she saw the back of a man. They were both stunned. Hearing the noise, the man turned around. Wen Yifan was completely blank, thinking about the recent home robbery case. They stared at each other, and once they recognized each other, Wen Yifan exclaimed, "What are you doing here?" "I live here." "How did you get in?" Sang Yang replied, sounding a bit helpless. He took out a key with his name on it and waved it in his hand. "I just moved in." Wen Yifan decided to call Wang Linlin. After several tries, she finally got through. Wang Linlin answered with an irritated tone, "Wen Yifan, are you crazy? You keep calling non-stop. What's your deal? I just need to ask you something. Did you give someone else a key? There's another person in the house right now." Wang Linlin's tone became more alert. "Could it be my boyfriend? You're not trying to hit on him, are you?" "It's Sang Yang," Wen Yifan explained. Wang Linlin let out a sigh of relief. "I asked my boyfriend to help find a roommate, but he didn't tell me anything. Just live with him, he's tall, handsome, and rich." "You hit the jackpot." Wen Yifan was annoyed. She thought Wang Linlin would at least apologize a little. "You told me something else before, didn't you?" Wen Yifan asked, frustrated. Wang Linlin paused for a moment. "Why are you being so mean? How was I supposed to know? You can't blame me for this. Are you afraid he still likes you?" "Relax," my boyfriend said. Sang Yang hadn't dated anyone in years and didn't get close to any girls. He was so close with his roommate that people joked they were practically a couple. Wen Yifan couldn't believe how unreliable Wang Linlin was. Wang Linlin, losing patience, said that living with someone of the opposite sex wasn't a big deal. She even mentioned that she met one of her exes this way. Wen Yifan, tired of holding back, spilled some gossip from a conversation with Su Tian. "Is that the guy who picks you up in the fancy car lately?" "What do you mean by that?" Wang Linlin snapped. "If you think living with Sang Yang is so great, why don't you come back and live with him yourself? Another guy wouldn't make a difference to you anyway." Meanwhile, Sang Yang was angrily talking to Su Haoan on the phone. "Are you out of your mind? Why should I have to share an apartment with someone?" Su Haoan, confused, realized it was about the roommate situation and started laughing. "I get it, man. Don't worry, you don't have to thank me. Just don't bother me tonight. You think it's cool for a guy like me to live with a girl? You didn't say that when we moved to Huacheng. And don't think I don't know how you got that girlfriend," Sang Yang retorted, blushing slightly. Ignoring Su Haoan's next comment about being a perfect roommate, Sang Yang hung up. Just then, Wen Yifan opened the balcony door and called out calmly, "We need to talk."